Hope you're doing well. Welcome. It's the Monday Morning Analyst. I hear all kinds of complaints, not about the segment. People seem to like the segment, but it's obviously much more visually oriented than sound oriented. But this one today, it is going to be visually oriented, but I've got a lot more. If you're listening on the podcast, you can just get more out of it. So I promise. All right. So what is this weekend? It's finally here. TJ Dillashaw is dropping down to 125. He's going to be taking on our guest, Henry Cejudo, at 125 pounds. It's a super fight. It's the first fight that'll be on ESPN, or first main event, excuse me, that'll be on ESPN Plus. And interestingly, as I speak to you today, there's not a ton of buzz about it. So for the Monday Morning Analyst, I was trying to figure out how these two would match up. And to be clear, there's a lot of reasons why we just won't know how they match up. I'll get to that a little bit later as well. But here's what I wanted to focus on. What do we understand about the modern TJ Dillashaw? What do we understand about the modern Henry Cejudo? What do we understand about their rematches? And what do we understand about how that will impact this fight? Consider, both of their last fights are rematches that they had against their heated rival. Now, in the case of TJ Dillashaw, he won both of them, and the second one much more quickly. In the case of Henry Cejudo, he had lost the first one very quickly, but then won the longer version of it. But still, there's a lot to learn. What did they take from those two fights? What do we know about them statistically? And then what can we infer from all of that that gives us a sense of what it might mean as TJ goes down a weight class and then they clash, right? So that's sort of what I did today. Now, I asked my boy MJC flip the script for some numbers. He failed me spectacularly, so shouts to him for not helping me out. But that's no bother because we don't need him today. Well, he always gives good information, but here's what I mean. We don't have to dig super far into the stats. If you look at the numbers for TJ Dillashaw and you look at the numbers for Henry Cejudo, one thing stands out to you, and I'll explain this again a little bit later. Statistically speaking, TJ Dillashaw is a marvel. Statistically speaking, Henry Cejudo is very good, but nothing particularly stands out. As I mentioned, there's a very good explanation for that, but let's start with TJ Dillashaw here if we can. TJ Dillashaw is good at everything, and you know that because he's a stat leader. I don't know exactly, I think he has like one or two mentions in the top 10 for the various different ways in which we measure fighting excellence. But at 135, he's got basically the entire game on lock. Here's what he has. Among all-time bantamweight experiences, TJ Dillashaw is second all-time in terms of fight time in the cage. He is first in knockdowns landed. He is first in significant strikes landed. This is SLPM. He is first in strikes landed per minute. He is second in terms of strike differential. If you add up all the strikes he lands on opponents, and then you add up all the strikes his opponents land on him, who has the highest differential all time? He's number 2 at bantamweight. He is 10th in significant strike defense, so he gets hit a little bit more, but still, he's ranked among the top 10 bantamweights all time in terms of that. He is first in total strikes landed, right? We're not even talking about the grappling side. So let's talk about it. In terms of grappling, he is 4th all-time at bantamweight in terms of takedowns landed. He is 2nd all-time in terms of submission attempts, which I didn't even realize. That's less true more recently, but if you look at some of his early fights, the Vaughn Lee fight, for example, and he is 3rd all-time in takedown defense rate at bantamweight. Yo, that's a complete fighter, literally, by any measurement. I mean, that is total excellence. Is he number 1 in every department? Well, no. I'm not sure which fighter in their weight class would be. Not even the great George St. Pierre holds number 1 in every distinction among welterweights, but that is extremely impressive. In every kind of statistical scenario, he's at least either the top of the pack, near the top of the pack, or certainly among the divisional leader, or the leaders in that particular case. It's amazing. You don't see a lot of athletes and a lot of fighters. You'll see they might have certain strengths. You'll see they might have certain predilections. They might have certain area of statistical ascendancy. he's got near complete statistical ascendancy. But there's a really good reason for that, right? And there's a reason that Cejudo doesn't. In my judgment, one of the reasons why you have seen these kinds of numbers from TJ Dillashaw is that he has a longer tenure in the UFC and he has had time to complete his game. I don't think anybody would look at his last fight against Cody Garbrandt and say to themselves, oh, that's the same guy who fought Mike Easton, right? They're not. I mean, they're similar versions, but he is much more into his matured skill set. And in that matured space has been able to accrue a lot of championship work, whether it be when he was interim champ, when he was fighting Renan Barão. The Dominic Cruz fight didn't go his way, but of course he was very competitive in that. Some think he won. And then he's had this title reign beyond that. So you get the idea here, right? He's had time to accrue statistics at a mature skill set level. John Jones, I think what you could say, whether you like him or dislike him, he's at a matured skill set level. He will continue to get better, but probably not substantially so, right? Because you just sort of reach this point in your early 30s where most of the elements of your game have been ironed out. You can add tools, but there's a finite amount. But between, the first 4 years of your growth compared to the next 4, there's exponential maturation. He is in that maturation stage, and that's why you see these. Plus, he's obviously an excellent fighter, right? He's so well-rounded. He can wrestle. He can grapple, the difference between the two. He's got the in-between spaces. He can strike on the outside. He can box on the inside. He can do everything, and he's got a lot of cardio in the event that he needs it. So that's one, or I should say, a bunch of reasons for the accounting of this number. Now, this is not so much a breakdown of his skills, more it is a recitation of his achievements. So here's what I want to do next. Let's take a look at the one big rematch in his career. Not a lot to take from this one when you watch it. BJJ Scout shouts to BJJ Scout. He has the best breakdown of this fight. The first one, I don't know if he did one in the second one, but he has the best one in the first one, which was, if you notice what Cody Garbrandt does, you have TJ Dillashaw switching stances all the time, but he was predictably, I should say, he was more commonly in a bit of a southpaw stance, or at least wanted to find entries off the southpaw stance. And what you would see Cody Garbrandt do is every time TJ Dillashaw wanted to get the major outside lead foot angle, Garbrandt would widen his stance to take it away so he couldn't get it. And it would force Dillashaw to reset, and he would have to find all these creative entries to get back where he wanted to be. A lot of that happens in the second fight as well. Here's the first one. This is where he gets knocked down. There's not a whole lot you can infer from this, but there's a couple of things I want to pay attention to. So as you can see here, he's walking in. Garbrandt's got this sort of nice wide stance. He sets himself up for the kick. He parries it, Garbrandt does. Now watch Dillashaw. He stays in this orthodox stance and then does a lot of feinting, as you know. What Garbrandt was doing this whole time was waiting, not biting on all the fakes and the feints, just waiting for him to come in and then catch him with flurries, typically off the initiation of the right hand. That's how this goes. So against the fence here, he doesn't have a lot of opportunity for lateral movement. He kind of bites down the mouthpiece and swings. But you'll notice what he does is he knows TJ Dillashaw is faking here, right? There's the feint, and he knows he's going to be in position. Garbrandt reads it and then fires the right hand inside and then gets his head off the center line right there, and then TJ Dillashaw drops. He was going to look at this left hook, man. Look at that left hook. That left hook, that joker. Boy, if that thing would have landed, that would have taken his head off, all right? Garbrandt's got dumb power. Boom, all right? So then he falls. So what is the inferred lesson from this? If you'll notice, I don't think it's necessarily the orthodox stance. For me, it's that Garbrandt knows that the fake and the feint don't mean anything, sort of swing at the sort of center, not center of mass, but where the head's going to be because it's going to pop back up. And he gets off the center line here as well. It's just better punching mechanics. He does come wider, but it's just good to get off in the way that he does. And he gets underneath the jab. That's sort of the way in which he finds success here and then gets out of the way of the right hand. You'll find anytime you can see Garbrandt in this kind of position where he is past the right hand of TJ, that's better for him because it's the right hand that typically causes him problems. So for me, it's just a great read by Cody Garbrandt, understanding not to bite in the fake and the feint. When the jab comes, time it, get your head off the center line, pop him with your right, initiate with the right, and then he pops him and drops him. So that's, to me, just a real basic overview of what's happening here. All right, and then he follows through. So now we go, and then that's it, right? So then we go to the second fight. Here we are, second round of the second fight. TJ Dillashaw, no, excuse me. This is second round of the first fight, because he's still the champion. What am I saying? Wait, yes, second round of the first fight. There was no second round in the second fight. So what you're going to see TJ Dillashaw do is try to not walk into a left-handed stance where he has the angle, but to almost hop into it. So watch this. Here he is. TJ Dillashaw does this a lot. He kind of leans and throws this up here, and sometimes he'll come with the left. He has so many different setups. He'll switch stances. He'll fade in and out. He'll weave. He'll do all kinds of stuff. But it's a thing he likes to do. He likes to lean over like this a little bit. So what he's going to do is he's going to try and go this way. See this Air Asia logo? He's going to try and set the angle that way. You're going to watch this here. All right, he fakes and feints. Garbrandt bites back. Here he is. He's going to stutter step this way. So now he's got the outside lead foot angle, right? So he's going to try and win this combination. Why does he win it? They both miss here. They both swing with the right. He's got his defense up. He does not. That's sort of one indication of the problem here. They trade again, and actually TJ gets hit. I actually wonder if the shoulder being inside the jaw kind of saves him here a little bit. I don't know that, but I sort of wonder. But here's why he ultimately gets clipped. Boom. And he just drops him like that. Why? What happens here? To me, I watched this probably 1,000 times, and I looked at how, first of all, Garbrandt steps into him. So he gets a little too close, right? But to me, the answer is, look at how tight the punching mechanics are of TJ. He comes from the hip, so it's not like he was here. But at the same time, it's just a much shorter windup. Because if you notice real slowly, look how that arm by Garbrandt is coming around. He was trying to throw the exact same punch. So he kind of steps into him and then has these super wide hooks, which is just not as mechanically efficient as what TJ Dillashaw does. I think also anytime Cody Garbrandt was having these extended stays in the pocket, he was having trouble. If he could push through in the pocket, he could have multiple strikes. If he wants to launch a 1-2 in the pocket, or whatever, a 3-2, or any of those, like a two-punch combination, he didn't have much of a problem. But anytime you get past that and you're kind of static in space, his hand speed and his efficient mechanics just gave him the advantage to get to that spot quicker. It's not there might be more complication factors than that. Someone who's obviously a good striking coach could probably point out some things I'm missing, but that seems to be the gist of it. There's not a whole lot to it, but there are some lessons to infer from this one. Notice that Dillashaw, when he came in the first time, he sets the angle and then blocks upside here and then doesn't come with the jab. He comes with the power shot over here. And look how far away he is from the punch. I would argue that this punch, TJ's, is closer to Cody's than Cody's is to TJ's, which is sort of the lesson here. He gets jammed in space there with a nice shot, but it doesn't matter because as they pop up, look what happens as they pop up. They're going to go down, and then as they pop up, boom. It's just a mechanically efficient shot. And he puts them down here. So there's some lessons to infer from this one. Again, these extended stays in the pocket, not leading with your jab, as Cody had such, and especially from that orthodox position, as Cody had such a good read on it and such great timing and reaction to it. Also, remember, just as a rule of thumb here, I'm going to mention this every time. Here we are. Where is the danger zone? You're looking at it. All the action happens in here, for the most part, right? Just keep that in mind. All right, so he drops him. Now, what can we infer from this, right? Here's the second fight. Actually, TJ got hit with a shot, and Cody follows up. Now, here we are. Cody throws, without really setting his feet, throws one, just kind of grazes. So there he is. He sort of goes from sort of a squared stance to orthodox. TJ lands too far past the head, kind of lands here-ish as opposed to here or here, right? Garbrandt plants and then tries to throw, and then TJ, look at TJ's mechanics. He gets off the center line while he throws his right over the top, catches Garbrandt, and then this is the death blow here. Bink. Now watch. What do you notice from this? Garbrandt comes in, hops in, throws. Let's go back one more. All right, so Garbrandt comes in, gets off-balanced here. TJ's off. TJ gets off the center line, so the punch misses, and it lands with some authority, but not quite enough. Garbrandt stays kind of where he is, bounces back almost, and then throws. But watch TJ's feet. So Garbrandt moves a little bit, but watch TJ's feet on the last one, right? Right here. Watch TJ's feet. He knows that the first one went too far. Second one lands, but not enough authority. He blocks, steps back in the pocket, assesses, head off the center line, boom, everything. So he just knew if you could draw Cody into these extended combinations, that's a problem for him. He stays a little bit more static. You've already got the much more mechanically efficient punch. It's the exact same right hand that dropped him the first time. And look, Cody misses with his own right. It's the exact same sequence again, only this time, TJ took what he learned from the first fight, adjusted slightly in the pocket in real time, which enabled him to get off the center line for Cody's punch to come past and for him to land his own right hand, and that sends him crashing to the mat. It's kind of genius, right? It's the same thing. If you actually watch the first fight between these two, Cody had a really good game plan. It was smart. It's hard to get that guy to bite on fakes and feints. He was, I think, landing on TJ. Remember, he dropped him in the first round. We showed it to you. He had a good game plan. It's just that TJ had a better ability to take advantage of the narrow window of Cody's mistakes. But Cody had a good game plan in the first and the second fight. He hurt him in both fights. It's just he had this Achilles heel where he just digs his heels in, throws against a guy who's got quicker hand speed, more mechanically efficient punches, and can make adjustments with his feet in the pocket. All right. Now, that brings us to, you can put the thumbnail up. That brings us to Henry Cejudo, yes? All right, so leave it up for just a second. So what happened in the first fight with DJ? I actually did a Monday Morning Analyst on it. Demetrius Johnson said it was good himself. You can look that up. That's a true fact. But the point being is this, neither here nor there, not the self-flattery notwithstanding. It was the controlling in the clinch. It wasn't a whole lot more that happened in the first one. It really took a bite out of him. There was a couple of things that DJ did that were really kind of smart. Here's one thing that DJ was so good at in that first fight. When they were wrestling with underhooks and overhooks in the clinch, what DJ would do is he would take a high underhook, he would jack it up, it would force them to lean to one side. And a lot of times if you think that, you might think a guy does a high underhook and then a collar tie and then to whip into that side. In fact, DJ would do the opposite. He would jack a high underhook, he'd have an overhook on this side, he would turn the guy to step, and as he raised this up, he would fire the knee right under the ribs. He had a really good ability to dig a high underhook, and then the knee wouldn't come around and it didn't come up. It kind of came up as like a knife, like a prison shank, man. Right inside the rib cage is how it got him. Nice shots, right? So that was kind of interesting, and that was ultimately what forced him to cover up and then dig in, and then DJ hit one right up the center, and then it was over. And then from there, you can go back and look. DJ's throwing, a punch to one side and then a rib roaster to the other and then one up the middle. He was having Cejudo pick his poison. Cejudo would cover up here and then get drilled here. He would cover up here and then get drilled up here. There was nowhere to hide. He shut all that down. Who won the clinch battle in the second fight? Henry Cejudo did. Not even debatable who won that one. In part because he shut it down. But let's watch the first one here very quickly. Watch. Cejudo's in a southpaw stance. Here comes DJ. He gets out of the way. Actually, it kind of pops him. Yep, it's hard to tell because Henry's hair is like a helmet. And they clinch up. All right, so here they are. They're clinched, yeah? Let's see what happens. Now watch. Remember that high underhook I was showing you? He's probably going to go to that side of the ribs, right? So watch. Here they're wrestling. And he's coming down. So he has the underhook on this side. So it's a 50-50. I have the underhook and I have the overhook, yeah? And he's pressing against the hips to create some space. Henry is. So let's watch this. So you can see where's Johnson sagging his weight? He's sagging his weight off to the right-hand side. And you see Henry try and throw a shot, but think about it. If you're trying to throw a shot where someone is sagging the weight, they're a little bit lower, but they might be pulling your posture down. You can't quite, like a real good knee, you want to lean a little bit, right? Not required necessarily, but to the body, you're almost stabbing it as opposed to coming up. So there's not much there. And they're turning. And you see this, watch this. So he goes to let this is a nice little job by Henry Cejudo. He takes the underhook, and then he goes down, and then Cejudo gets his wrist controlled. So Cejudo actually feeds it across to the other hand. See that? Now the right hand comes over. See that? And then strips the grip. But he loses a lot of the inside space. Do you guys see that stripping of the grip? Right here. Watch that. See this? That is the right hand of Henry Cejudo. And he's coming over to strip out the grip by holding it right there. That lets the grip off, yeah? So he's trying to keep that inside space. Remember, inside space is everything. If you can control here on somebody, that's why double underhooks is just a nightmare scenario for somebody who knows how to use it. I almost poked my own eye out. I'm a stupid man. All right. Also, notice the sort of hip angle here. He's facing this way, Johnson's facing this way, and he's got the high underhook on the side where he's facing. So not a great scenario, right? And if you haven't seen my old MMA analyst on this, you can understand why. So there they are. They're trying to trade. Boom, he misses. And you can see as he tries to regain balance, DJ tries to trip him, but he's not far enough around him. So he just has to swing back into position. Here we are. Still have the overhook side facing us. He uses that shoulder. Watch this. He bops him with the shoulder. The overhook comes off, and now DJ turns it into a high underhook. Right? Watch this. Turns him. Just goes back to the overhook. Leans out. Watch this. Pow, son. Right on the liver. That is so nice from Demetrious Johnson. Look at this. Leans him over. Resets his feet. Brings the right foot inside. Bing. Oh, bro, that is painful. You can immediately see him flex down to hold that in place because he didn't want none of that. Who would? Right, here they are, they're going back, still has the high side underhook as he's turning him, goes straight, and then he lets go, and then he tries to pop him once here and gets a little too close. All right, so this is still the first fight. Just wanted to show you how he was hitting him on the ribs there, yeah? Throws a right hand, and they miss, and then they clinch. All right, here we are back to square one. High side underhook, where do you think that knee is coming, right? Boom, same side, look at that, bro. It is tearing him up. And then he's sagging his weight to the other side. And so this way, head is on the same side as the overhook. That makes no elbow possible, right? Even though you have the underhook. A lot of guys a lot of your really good fighters in MMA, like your Khabib Nurmagomedovs, your Demetrious Johnsons, they'll keep an underhook and they're like, next time you watch an exchange with somebody and it's 50-50, so they have one underhook and they have one overhook, watch who dominates because ostensibly that's a neutral position where you have as many advantages as I do. But I have noticed that the very best fighters will take that neutrality, that perceived neutrality, and they'll set you on fire with it, man. The Demetrious Johnson does it. Go back and watch Khabib Nurmagomedov. You think you have an underhook, he will pin that to your body and then take you in that direction because he's using it as a blocking mechanism. He's amazing at it. So it's not 50-50 at all. You got to get double unders on those guys or some kind of a different strategy. So here they are. They're all locked up. He's going to push him to the fence. Now watch. Look, he's already covering that side because it's killing him, yeah? He's going to drive into the fence here, and he gets his back off of it for the most part, turns. And then, look at this. As he tries to force his hips, he wants to force his hips square to push him back into the fence. As he does, DJ brings him into that very same side and then cracks him with the knee, just like that. And then all hell broke loose. Thumbnail, please. All right? So, what did you see there? Just dig into the body, controlling, turning. Whatever way you're going, you're blocking, he's digging. Then you're coming this side, and he's bringing it up high. He was so accurate with his knees in the clinch, so flexible, right? He could do so much with it in that regard. Amazing to watch. But the rematch would not be like this. So here's one instance. You can put it back up. He learned from all of this, Henry Cejudo did. There we are. So watch this. Henry tries to kick him. Cejudo grabs it. Cejudo throws a kick. DJ grabs it, right? What are we doing here? There we are. All right. Pushes him back into the fence. There's a lot of ways to get your leg out. I don't know exactly what's happening here, so if a wrestling coach does, my hunch is that what's happening here is you see that they are tied up here with their hand control, so it's got nothing to do with that. What I think happens is Cejudo pulls on the elbow of DJ and then drives his foot to the mat. I think he wanted to drive DJ into the fence because it actually enables you to stomp harder if I can push down and out, right? Think about it. How am I going to get my leg to the ground if someone's picking it up? It's actually a little bit harder than you think. But if I can lean my weight forward, if I can push you back and I can pull up on your hand or your elbow, I can just loosen the mechanisms that are keeping it in place and I can stomp my foot to the ground, which is what look here, I can't quite see it though, right? See that? See Cejudo kind of turning and pulling it up and then driving his foot to the ground, yeah? Right there. I think that's what happens. So number one, it's a nice job by Cejudo to get his foot to the ground there in a situation he had him dead to rights. Now look at this space. First of all, look what he's doing. He's got a high side overhook here, as opposed to a high side underhook like Demetrius had. He's got a high side overhook, which could still be problems, but look at that right hip. It's inside, like they're dance partners, like they're doing the they're up there doing the salsa and like Cali Colombia style, right? He's super in on him, so there's no real space to generate momentum or get those knees where he wants to go. And on the inside space, look at that elbow. The elbow is not here. The elbow is here. It's super tucked inside. Look at that, smothering him. And so you see an elbow here, or excuse me, a knee from Demetrius, but there's nothing on it. And look at that. Look at the space here. Rather than being at an angle like he was before, which just completely torched him, now he is chest to chest, hip to hip, smothering him, head pressure. Look at the head pressure there, forcing him back, collapsing him against the space, right? Much better job. Totally took away this space from him. I really, really like this from Henry Cejudo, and eventually they just break away. But look, he keeps that inside control the whole time, bicep, forcing it nice and tight the whole time. Right? Look, there's nowhere to go if you're DJ, and eventually DJ gets his back off that side. Cejudo presses right back into him, constantly pummeling in, constantly on that left-hand side, and then jacking the high side underhook, and then high side overhook, and then getting him away. So here's the last thing he did. You can put the thumbnail up for just a second. Last thing he did was this. Okay, you can put it back down. So same thing. These guys clinched a lot, because they would overshoot their shots a lot. Not wrestling shots, but punches. And so DJ throws a shot, Cejudo ducks, gets just a really great penetration step here. DJ stuffs it, so they decide to stay in the clinch. Look at this. Now who's coming up under the elbows on the left-hand side? Nice shot from Henry Cejudo, right? And doesn't waste a second. Same spot as before, right? Here we are. Throws the knee, stands. Remember that this looks similar, and then recenters position and doesn't wait an instant. Goes for an inside trip off the outside overhook, catches the knee, drives through, and takes him down. How many times did he land this in that fight? You can put the thumbnail up. Over and over and over and over again. So here's what I'm talking about. You can look at a guy like TJ Dillashaw. What do the best fighters do? They have a modular game that they can adapt for a particular purpose. It didn't require a ton of adaptation for TJ Dillashaw to go from the first to the third fight. You have to pick the right entries. You have to know which circumstances your opponent is most vulnerable. You have to make some adjustments on the fly. But it was more or less in place. For Henry Cejudo, he had to do a major overhaul, and he did it. Completely shut down Demetrius Johnson in the clinch. You can say he lost the fight. There's no way you could say he lost in that space. Didn't waste any time, got that takedown. He got that takedown once in the first fight. He got it multiple times in this one. That inside trip was always there. And this time, he didn't wait around to mess with the guy. He completely smothered him. He getting hip to hip against the fence or in outside space. If there's any distance between us, shoot for that takedown. If you don't get it, at least it causes a scramble and you can force away. And then more often than not, he actually got it. So really good job. So that brings us to these two. Real quickly, I want to show you just some very basic stats comparing them. I'll blow this up. This is, you can't quite read it, but I'll blow it up. This is Henry Cejudo on the inside, and the outside's TJ Dillashaw. I will read these to you if you can't see them. Here we are. Wins and losses, of course, sort of irrelevant for the circumstances. Average fight time, 13:42, 12:26. Not altogether dissimilar. Henry Cejudo's 5'4" to TJ Dillashaw's 5'6". 125, ostensibly. Reach, TJ Dillashaw is going to have a bit of a longer reach, but the question is how he uses it. And they classify both of them as orthodox fighters, but, they both switch stances. Strikes landed per minute. Henry Cejudo, 3.42. TJ Dillashaw, 5.38. Pay attention to that. See if you can get any kind of a lead established by simply creating more offensive volume. Striking accuracy is nearly identical. Strikes absorbed per minute, not too dissimilar. Striking defense is nearly identical. Takedowns averaged per 15 minutes. Henry Cejudo, 2.31, 1.69. That is important. As I mentioned, pay attention to the volume of output that, in terms of strikes that TJ has, pay attention to the takedowns. That's going to be kind of important, if not to either get them, but to threaten them. Takedown accuracy is about the same. Takedown defense is about the same, all right? Last, what does this tell us? Understanding how this fight's going to go. By the way, this could resemble each of their last fights. Do not misunderstand me. Both of their last fights look completely different, but here's what I mean. You got a guy like TJ Dillashaw, who I think is going to be looking to pressure. He's going to be looking to find his way on the inside. You've got a guy like Henry Cejudo, who's going to be used to absorbing that pressure a little bit, who's going to be used to counterfighting exactly like he did against DJ. I don't think he has Garbrandt power, but at 125, we'll see how things go. But the point being is that dynamic is a little bit in play. He's still going to want to establish the takedown or the takedown threat, at least a little bit, and he's going to want to be able to get there and trick somebody into overcommitting. It's going to be potentially, they're going to borrow some of those game plans as they move into their next fight. Leg kicks. TJ Dillashaw needs to pay attention to that. I'm sure he will. Henry Cejudo got torn up by leg kicks in that fight, even against Wilson Hayes a little bit. Less so Sergio Pettis because he got taken down, but just sort of worthy of mentioning. Cejudo must threaten the takedown. Against wrestle boxers, it's important that he at least establish that. You're going to see that in you saw a bunch of that. But if you look at the stats, it kind of shows that I'm running short on time here. And the weight cut. Who knows how the weight cut's going to look? I mean, what does it do to TJ's chin? What does it do to his cardio? What does it do to his ability to absorb punishment to the body? What does it do to everything? His punching power, his speed, everything. To me, it's a major, major X factor. I don't really know what to make of it. So who's going to win when these two donkeys fight on ESPN+? Your guess is as good as mine. You know what? I forgot a slide. I am an idiot. Here's one thing to pay attention to. How did I forget this slide? Against wrestle boxers, he goes to the body a lot. So pay attention to the body work of Henry Cejudo. I didn't put it in here for some reason, but that is a key component of his game. He really, really likes to go to the body, and not against the Sergio Pettis, who he takes down, not against the Wilson Hayeses, who are overmatched, but against those guys like a Benavidez, against those guys like a Demetrius Johnson. And Demetrius Johnson's less a wrestle boxer, but he kind of acted like one in that capacity. The body work, it's almost even with his head work, not quite, but pretty close. So pay attention to the body work for him. So leg kicks for TJ, body work for him. How's the weight cut going to go? Do they borrow some of the same game plans from their last fight? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but I actually feel like these two guys are good at a lot of things. And here's the last point about Henry Cejudo. I mentioned, why does TJ have all these impressive stats? Why does Henry not? Because Henry has just entered the mature stage of his game. He's finally in a stage now where everything has kind of grown and come together. He's been there for a while. Now, I'm not declaring that he wins. I'm not declaring he wins. I really don't know. That weight cut is such an X factor. But here's the point that I am making. I am suggesting to you that Henry Cejudo, if you watch some of his older fights, it is so different. So he just hasn't been in a space where he has been able to really show who he is and develop offensive volume and defensive attributes on top of it. I think now he's in that stage. I think you saw that with the Wilson Hayes fight, and then the Sergio Pettis fight, and then certainly in the second Demetrius Johnson fight. Only now is he entering that space. So don't let the stats totally fool you here. They are helpful, but they're not ironclad. They do tell you a lot about him, not a lot about him. Can't wait for Saturday. That's the Monday Morning Analyst.